Welcome back for your final round of CPW Science Edition. Today we're going to have 5 questions based on the passage. In our first question, we're going to select 2 or more pieces of data from a simple data presentation, and we'll know we'll be successful when we can select a multifaceted answer from a data table. Our second question, we're going to compare and combine from a simple data presentation, so I know we'll be successful. We can compare multiple pieces of data from a single data table. Our third question, we're going to combine or compare data from 2 or more simple data presentations. I know I'm going to be successful when I can compare multiple pieces of data from multiple data tables. And our fourth question, we're going to analyze presented information when given new or simple information. And I know we're going to be successful when we can predict the answer for a question based on already presented information. And the last, we're going to compare or combine data from a simple data presentation again, and then determine the answer for a single part of a data table, provided a key. And our first question says, according to Table 2, so that means I need to look for Table 2 on my handout, strain C was able to grow in the presence of which 2 antibiotics? If we look at the table over here, we need to find strain C. And it has a growth rate of 1 for 2 antibiotics and 0 for the other. I see a note down here where it says if the number of bacteria remain the same or decrease, relative growth rate is reported as 0.0. So what this note tells me is that if a number says 0.0, that means that the antibiotic was effective in stopping the growth of the bacteria. However, if it's not 0, that means that the antibiotic was not effective in stopping the growth of the bacteria, meaning it failed. So when we ask for a question where that strain C was able to grow in the presence of which 2 antibiotics, we look for the growth rate, which is over 0, and that corresponds to sulfonamide and tetracycline. So the best answer for number 1 is D. And our second question, we're looking at Table 2 once more, and it's asking which 2 strains had relative growth rates greater than 0.0 when cultured with each of the 4 antibiotics. So what this question is asking is which 2 bacterial strains kept growing even in the presence of all 4 options. So the data we have to look for is if there's numbers next to each type of antibiotic. So A is a great example of that. B is not, because I see that there's zeros for the last 3 options. C has zeros, D has zeros, but E has growth rates for all 4 antibiotics. So our best answer is G for number 2. In question number 3, we're comparing 2 data tables. We're comparing tables 1 and table 2. And the question is asking which of the following strains most likely does not carry R388, which is a defined plasmid in table 1. So we're looking at this one. So we're looking at R388, and I see that there's an X here. But I also see that there's a note saying the X indicates that the plasmid provides some resistance to the corresponding antibiotic. So what this means is that R388 grows in the presence of sulfonamide, which means that sulfonamide is not what I would use to treat someone who has this bacterial plasmid. So what I need to look for then is an antibiotic that does treat, so that sulfonamide does actually affect a strain, and so if I look at this row for sulfonamide, I see that strain A, C, D, and E all were not affected by sulfonamide, which means they most likely have R388. But strain B was affected bisulfonamide because there is no growth, which means that strain B does not carry that particular plasmid. So the correct answer for number 3 is B. In our fourth question, we're going to be comparing the data that we've already been given, and now we're given new information. So in a classroom experiment, a teacher provided the students with one of the 4 antibiotics listed in tables 1 and 2. The students cultured each of the 5 strains with the antibiotic and recorded the following results. So there was normal bacteria growth with strain A. There was no growth with strains B, C, and D, and there was reduced growth with strain E. So in order to kind of figure out which antibiotic they're speaking of, I have to find the antibiotic that has no growth with B, C, and D. So I see that for B, C, and D, there's no growth for ampicillin, and that's not the case for any of the other options. But I also see that there was normal growth at a 1.0 for strain A, and that there was reduced growth for a 0.5 for strain E. So even though we figured out really quickly that ampicillin was the antibiotic that was the answer, we want to support our answers with other data as well. So to recap, the best answer for 4 is H. And our last question asks, based on the information provided, a bacterial strain that carries which of the following plasmids would most likely grow with ampicillin? So we're looking for something that will most likely grow, which means that it's going to show resistance based on the vocabulary that we have been provided with in our handout. So if we're looking for something that has some resistance, remember the X indicates that there's resistance, and ampicillin does not affect PBr 322. So our answer for 5 is PBr 322. So to recap, ladies and gentlemen, the answers to this week's CPW are 1D, 2G, 3B, 4H, and 5C. Until next time.